There's an interesting difference between the selection of Avram Avinu and the selection of Moshe Rabbeinu. When God appears to Avram with the command of Lech Lecha, we're not so sure what Avram has done to merit this divine command. And indeed, the Midrash tries to fill it in with stories of the fiery furnace and the idol shop and the like. However, that is not the case with regard to Moshe Rabbeinu. We actually have 3 stories preceding God's encounter with Moshe at the burning bush, at the sneh, which indicate Moshe's character and heroism. First, of course, Moshe sees that an Egyptian taskmaster is hurting one of his fellow Jews, and he strikes down the Egyptian. That is story 1. Second, he sees 2 Jews fighting, and he steps forward to break it up. When he then learns that there's a death sentence on his head, he flees to Midian, encounters shepherds who are persecuting the daughters of Yitro, and he once again steps in to save the day. And then after those 3 stories, Moshe is called by God for his mission, and we understand someone of such sterling character could be the savior of Am Yisrael. But let's analyze a bit more deeply. Perhaps there's some development in these 3 stories that indicates why Moshe is chosen. And the ideas I'm going to cite are working off 3 sources. You can find it in Nechama Leibowitz and in Rav Moshe Victor Amiel's Drashot. And I think it really begins in an essay on Moshe by Echad Ha'am. And there are 2 approaches. One is that perhaps Moshe keeps expanding the cycle of who he helps and when he helps. In the first scenario, it's pretty much obvious. You have an Egyptian and a Jew. Let's assume Moshe already has a developed Jewish identity, so Moshe identifies with the victim. And there's an aggressor and a victim, and your sympathies are naturally drawn to a victim. So it's obvious Moshe should step in. Right, there's a foreign aggressor against your countryman who's a victim. Moshe steps in and saves the day. The second story is a bit less obvious, because there's no clear bad guy. There's no clear aggressor and victim. It's simply a fight. It might be easier at that point to say, I do not have to get involved. But it's 2 Jews. Moshe feels connected, and he indeed steps in to help. Finally, in story 3, Moshe runs away, and these are people he has no connection to. They're not Jewish, they're not countrymen, he has never met them before, and yet Moshe sees that they're women being given a hard time, and he again decides to help. So that would be the Moshe Rabbeinu, someone of great diligence, of great compassion, who stands up for justice no matter who the victim is. Is it someone he knows or someone he does not know? Is there a clear bad guy? He is someone who's willing to help. But there's a second approach. And in some ways, the second approach is even more profound. I think when we start our career and we're young and idealistic and optimistic, we have this nice sense we're going to help people, we're going to be heroic, and it'll just all be great for us. We'll be on the front page of the paper, and we'll hear the cheering crowds, and it's just great. And we lose a sense that sometimes doing the right thing could actually cause us to suffer. We could be harmed as a result. Perhaps Moshe starts out as such a young idealist. He embarks on his idealistic career, sees an Egyptian hurting a Jew, and he strikes down the Egyptian. He goes home that day in a great mood. It's like I always thought, I'm a hero, I stepped in, and it all works out. Then he steps in again in the second story. But suddenly he discovers that Paro knows about this. In fact, there's a death sentence on his head. At this point, Moshe can no longer think that those who help never struggle as a result. He knows very well that his idealistic heroism may have endangered his own life. Now he runs away to Midian. You'd think at this point, Moshe would say, that's it, I don't get involved, I see you get hurt. The first thing he sees is someone in distress, and he immediately responds. Meaning Moshe's compassion was never built on the assumption that it's good, I won't have to suffer for it, it'll just be great. Moshe understands very deeply that sometimes doing the right thing comes at a cost and a consequence, and yet he's willing to help. And if such a person is certainly worthy to be the Moshe of Am Yisrael. So I think we end up with 2 themes here. We have Moshe as the person who's always willing to help. He does not have to be connected to you. If you're in distress, if you're in pain, Moshe is there. Secondly, Moshe understands very well that life is complicated, and sometimes being idealistic could hurt, and yet we remain committed to our ideals. Such a person should lead the Jewish people out of Egypt. Shabbat Shalom.